I'm JP Tuesday.
And I'm Kiki Cannon. As lifelong Disney fans, the work of countless talented Disney creatives have shaped our lives.
Now, as the Disney catalog expands, we're taking a journey through film and television to discover if that spark that shaped us as children lives on in adulthood.
Does your favorite Disney media still cast that same spell? Join us as we find out. We are Rewatching the Magic.
Hi, Kiki.
Hi, Tuesday.
We are wrapping up Marvel Before Marvel Studios month with Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., the 1998 TV movie starring David Hasselhoff.
You know this movie, not a big hit over here, huge hit in Germany.
Ha!
Massive hit in Germany. That's a joke for you old folks.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, this is the first live action Nick Fury. And it's kind of funny and because I want to get this one out before we even really deep dive into the movie. Apparently, like, the deal with Marvel when it came to Hasselhoff doing this TV movie, he almost played Nick Fury in the MCU because of this movie. Like, contractually, he almost played it. Even though this was a Fox TV movie, the deal was with Marvel. So, yeah, imagine a world, the alternate universe, where instead of Samuel L. Jackson meeting Tony Stark, it's David Hasselhoff.
Yeah, and I mean, gonna hassle the Hoff about it, because I was someone who did watch a lot of his stuff back in the day, because I think we all were.
Knight Rider, Baywatch, yeah.
I mean, I never watched Baywatch, but I think I've seen like an episode. But and then of course you gotta watch, Obscura Slupa's Baywatching series. I think that's how I've seen most of Baywatch. But
Baywatch Nights, yeah.
yeah, the Baywatching series where she goes through Baywatch and Baywatch Nights, yeah. But I am sure I have seen every episode of Knight Rider at least 3 times. But as I said before, I was watching Knight Rider more for the talking car than the, weird human inside of it. But I will also admit that, I may own a DVD of Jekyll and Hyde, as well. Just to, has nothing to do with David Hasselhoff. I just really like that play. I think it's kind of an interesting play.
Sidebar on that, I love when people like on TikTok and Instagram do the confrontation song, flipping back and forth. Even Hasselhoff flipping back and forth, doing that on stage. The fact that he can do it in one go, perfect.
Yeah. Again, not really big on Broadway. Huge in Germany, though. Huge. Huge. I sat through him as a judge on America's Got Talent. I mean, I followed his career. Thank you. But I think the only reason he got the part of Nick Fury was that he just happened to look like the way they were drawing Nick Fury in the comics at the time they cast this movie.
According to my research, it was because he was just a well-known star, and they wanted a well-known star to star in this TV movie that might have been a pilot for a TV show.
Well, I mean, let me put it this way. I said that kind of inelegantly. I think the only reason he sort of works as Nick Fury on camera is that he does sort of have the look of the Nick Fury at the time from the comics.
Yeah, back then, Nick Fury was a white guy.
Yeah. But he also was, not only a white guy, but he was a white guy with brown hair in a similar style. He had a similar body type. If you look at the way that they portray him visually, that's it. I'm just saying, like, look up a screen cap from this and then look up, one of the panels of Nick Fury from the time they were filming this. They are very similar. The only thing is for some reason they did not put the white streaks in his hair. I mean, you can be
Yeah,
forgiven that with Samuel L. Jackson because he hasn't had hair in ages. You know, he's had that shaved bald head look for so long.
I can forgive it because that's Nick Fury, director of S.H.I.E.L.D. He's not the director at this point in this movie.
Yeah, he's still just agent, on the ground shooting it up and, punching bad guys and stuff. But even at the time it came out, before the MCU had even been thought up. I remember people talking about this movie and, like hardcore comic fans, sitting around the comic store going like, man, that movie was not good. But David Hasselhoff did have the look. Like, maybe he's not the best actor for it, but man, did he look like Nick Fury come off a comic page. Because he kind of did at the time.
Even if you want to compare it to something that happened on television just a few years before this, the Nick Fury character had appeared in some of the Marvel animated shows, like Spider-Man and stuff. So, and it also is a similar look, and it kind of works.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, he looked a lot more like Nick Fury than I think, like just going back in the movies we've watched, than Dolph Lundgren looked like Frank Castle at the time, So it was at least visually pretty good casting. Whether or not it was, casting in other respects, we'll get to that.
So yeah, this is the first live action Nick Fury, the first live action instance of S.H.I.E.L.D., the first live action instance of Hydra. Things that will become very prominent in the MCU, and a couple of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Hydra related characters make their live action debuts in this movie. We've already talked about the Hoff as Nick Fury. Another character makes her first live action appearance here, a character that is kind of now a very important character in the multiverse saga currently in the MCU. Lisa Rinna as Valentina Allegra de Fontaine. Yes, Val. You probably know her being played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus in the MCU, but this is her first live-action appearance. So yeah, this is Val, the first live-action appearance of Val. I would like to say, before anyone would say anything, this is years before Maria Hill was even created for Marvel. So had that character existed, I'm pretty sure this would have been Maria Hill. But because that character did not exist yet, it wouldn't exist for another 3 or 4 years in the comic books. So we get Valentina in here as the potential love interest for Nick Fury. Lisa Rinna, best known, Days of Our Lives, Melrose Place, kind of known now for Real Housewives, stuff like that.
Well, I was gonna say, like, I've been in the game so long that that I remember, around the time that this was filmed, like Lisa Rinna was actually like an actress. I know if you only know her from her work now, then that might surprise you to know that at one point she was an actress.
Yeah. Let's keep going with our S.H.I.E.L.D. cast here. Neil Roberts as rookie agent Alexander Pierce. Now, if you only know the character of Alexander Pierce from the MCU, was played by Robert Redford, it is a great departure from the character to see him as a stick-by-the-rules rookie agent.
And also very, very British.
Yes.
This is the foppiest, Britishiest character, I think, in the MC. Like, Captain Britain would look at this guy and be like, tone it down, my dude.
For me, the next one is a bit close to my heart. Gary Chalk as Dum Dum Dugan. I know Gary Chalk more as a voice actor. He will always be Optimus Primal from Beast Wars to me. I know Gary Chalk has had multiple live-action roles, but to me, him as a voice actor in so many cartoons that I grew up watching, that voice is just synonymous with me with Optimus Primal, Optimus Prime. He was in a really bad version of He-Man that I do remember. But yeah, for me, Gary Chalk, I know him more as a voice actor than as a live. And it's really weird to see this version of Dum Dum Dugan. Because he doesn't wear the bowler hat. He doesn't have the handlebar mustache. He's just Tim, which is weird.
Yeah, they keep calling him Tim or Timothy. I don't think anybody ever calls him Dum Dum at any point. I don't
If you
think
didn't,
anybody calls him Dugan, you know.
when we first see him, Nick calls him Timothy Dugan. So yes, this is supposed to be Dum Dum Dugan. And then just calls him Tim for the rest of the movie.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, a lot of these things, here's the thing is, kind of if you're going to watch this, the main way you're going to watch it right now is YouTube. Somebody
Yeah.
uploaded it to YouTube. Thank you to the person who uploaded it. Because nobody cares about this movie. And I can tell you how little people care about this movie is because this thing has been uploaded to YouTube in full, in fairly decent quality. I know it was like a VHS rip or whatever, but pretty decent quality for what's available at all for like years on the same channel, and nobody has ever copyright struck it at time of recording.
You'd think Fox, because this was a Fox-produced TV movie, would do something about it. You think Disney, since they own Marvel, and they bought 20th Century Fox, that they would do something. But no. They're just ignoring it and putting it up there. Kind of what we talked with the Punisher movies. Like, it's up there. You can find it. You can watch it in full, and it's in pretty damn decent quality. They're not caring about striking that movie down.
Yeah, and this was done, like, actually under Fox. This was, we talked about with the Punisher that New World was failing and would soon be bought out by Fox. This was right after the bought out by Fox. Okay? This was a made-for-TV movie. It was shown on Fox one night. It was, they were hoping to make a TV series out of it. That never happened. That's it. I think it got like a home release at some point. Nobody really bought it. Like, you had to be like a really big either Marvel or David Hasselhoff fan to care enough to buy this on home media.
Yeah.
And so for those of us who were alive at the time, we were like, oh yeah, I remember watching that. I think Sci-Fi Channel played it a couple of times, in their era when they were still playing all the random Marvel stuff for this. And then they were like, you know what? We can make better shows ourselves with a lot of these
Yeah.
same actors, because you remember Gary Chalk primarily as Optimus Primal. I remember Gary Chalk primarily as Colonel Chekhov, who showed up over and over again on Stargate. And also, because lived, I'm assuming, in or around Vancouver at the time, because this is when everything was filmed in Vancouver, including this movie. He was in every single sci-fi show that was filmed in the time when everything was filmed in Vancouver.
Well, I believe Beast Wars and Reboot were both animated in Canada, so sure, I'll buy it.
Yeah, but I mean, even if you just look at his, like, IMDb for like his live action work, he was on like, an episode of Highlander, an episode of Outer Limits, an episode of Dead Zone, an episode of it's just all stuff that was filmed, roughly in that time period when everything was being filmed in the same spot in Vancouver. And you got like the same couple of actors, because another one of the actors that was there is Tom McBeath, who I also primarily know from Stargate SG-1, because he was Colonel Mayburn on SG-1, but in this, he's the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. He's the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. Pincer.
Yeah, I believe this character was created for this movie, because there's no listing of this character in any Marvel wiki that I'm finding, other than directing back to this movie.
Yeah, and, I have no reason to believe that Tom McBeath is anything other than, like, just, a decent, chill guy. I've never heard anything bad about him. But he does have one of those faces that if you look at him from like a directorial, casting sense, you're like, that guy has the most punchable face. Find me the most punchable role in this script, and we're going to cast him as that guy.
And that's
Because
kind of what happens. Spoiler.
yeah, because he's that guy in this. He's like every time he showed up on Stargate, I was like, man, please somebody punch that guy.
We have rules. We have rules, Fury. You gotta follow the rules. Well, the bad guys don't follow the rules.
Yeah. We'll get to Fury and his rule following in this, but we also get Ron Canada though, and Ron Canada, like, woo, talk about a powerhouse. Ron Canada also one of those people that was in everything. I think he might be retired now. I don't know, but he has been in everything, including several things we've talked about, on here already. He was on the Orville, he was on, lots of stuff. But he would always show up on like every Star Trek show. He was on like Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager, and all that. He was on Babylon 5. He was on X-Files. He was on, he was just one of those guys that like no matter what show you turned on, he was always there. And I hadn't seen him like since the Orville, so I don't know if maybe he's like taken a well-earned retirement or whatever by now, but yeah.
Yeah, and Ron Canada plays Agent Gabe Jones, who actually was in the MCU. He's actually one of Captain America's team in the first Captain America movie.
Yeah, one of the Howling Commandos, yeah.
Yeah.
He serves in this movie though as basically the general doctor character. He gets the doctor slash scientist kind of role. And rounding out the team for the movie, we get Tracy Waterhouse as Kate Neville. Tracy Waterhouse, not even a Wikipedia page on her. Don't know terribly too much about her.
Yeah, Kate Neville, the character of Kate Neville, was popular enough to get a short run series of her own in the comics, mostly as a supernatural kind of investigator. In this movie, they make her a psychic with neural implants to give her psychic powers.
Yeah, and it is, yeah, it's just like, okay, I guess you were just pulling names out of the comics and assigning them random status. Because there is like another member of, Fury's SHIELD team that is in this movie, but he's in this movie for about 45 seconds and then he dies.
Adrian Griffiths as Clay Quarterman. Yeah, Clay Quarterman, he's a character I'm not really familiar with, I'm going to be honest with you.
And even if you're familiar with him, you're not going to know it's him until after he's dead. And they're like, Nick, Clay Quarterman has died. And you're like, was that who that was supposed to be? Okay, all right. Would have been nice if you'd told us that before he died so we could, like, have some sort of reaction to him dying instead of him just being one of the other randomly nameless people. It's like one of those, like you just said, like, oh, well, they mentioned he was, Timothy Dugan when they walked in the door. It's like, yeah, the quality of this is so bad. It's like, it's probably printed on his name badge and they pan past it, in one of the early shots. But it's not really emphasized enough for you to be like, that is the character that I am supposed to know and love from the comics, And that is, I'm just going to go ahead and address that right now, because that is the problem with basically every character in this, good guys or bad guys, is that they kind of took the names and then laid them onto a movie that doesn't really feel like these people belong in this movie in a lot of ways.
It's like we want to do a SHIELD something. We have Nick Fury. He's our main character. okay, we can't use any of the other big name Shield characters. Can't use Hawkeye, can't use Black Widow, can't use any of the Avengers. Okay, let's get these D tier Shield agent names and we'll just assign them to these characters.
Yeah, it's like, here's the list of names we can use. Pick somebody you think has an interesting looking name or look, and we'll shove them into the film.
I'm just saying Gary Chuck needed a mustache.
Well, Gary Chalk needed like a mustache. He needed red hair. He needed a bowler hat. He needed he needed a whole makeover.
Yeah.
That was not, no offense to Gary Chalk, who I do like as an actor, but that was not Dum Dum. That was like not my Dum Dum. I will say that on the Hydra side, we did slightly better.
Yeah, our main villain for this movie, Sandra Hess as Andrea von Strucker, aka the Viper, which are two different characters in the comics.
Like I said, they just picked names out of a hat, slapped them into the script. It doesn't mean anything.
Which is interesting because Viper shows up in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the one that everyone knows.
Yeah. And the Strucker family is, pretty prominent in the MCU.
And in another Fox show, The Gifted.
Well, I still consider that part of the MCU, and you know what? The people in charge of the MCU can fight me on that.
Technically, that's part of the... Well, we're in the multiverse saga. Everything counts. So there's a multiverse for this movie's canon.
Until they close the multiverse loophole. No, I mean, even before that, I would have said that. Like, it's all... I wouldn't consider it part of the continuity, maybe, but part of the family. Show some respect to your side projects there. Justice for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., justice for, The Gifted, justice for Inhumans. I'll say it.
Bold.
Yeah. I'm that person. I'm that nerd. But yeah, we get the whole Von Strucker family here, really, because we get the Baron as mostly a popsicle. We'll get to it.
Yeah, Baron von Strucker we've talked about him before because he shows up at the very end of Winter Soldier. He's at the beginning of Age of Ultron, and that's kind of it for Mr. von Strucker. And I believe we do see Baron in a cameo in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., both in the same actor from the MCU and as a young man when they do the time travel BS. Campbell Lane is Baron Strucker in this movie. And also in the comics, Andrea has a twin brother, Andreas, who is not in this movie. But she does have an older brother, which is from the comics, Werner von Strucker, who also shows up in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show.
Yeah, I mean, that whole family was, of course, really, really important to the Hydra lineage throughout the comics, and various versions of them show up in, like you said, in various projects. Most notably, the Baron, because, he's the one that supposedly creates Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver in mainline MCU, where they are not children of Magneto. But in this one, the Baron is mostly a popsicle, having been on ice since World War II. Because this movie does take place in present day 1990.
Yeah, and apparently he's still alive from World War II. Nick says, I killed the man myself. So how old is Nick Fury?
We're not going to ask that question. It is very rude to ask a secret agent his age.
I mean, the comics is all over the place of Nick Fury's age.
Yeah, but Nick Fury was supposed to be somehow related to... he knows quite a lot about the workings of Hydra during the WW2, as it were, and what they were doing, and then he seems very, very mad about the recent at time of movie being set fall of the Iron Curtain. So I will say that that the last one that we get that is really like known, of course, to the if you follow the modern stuff and primarily the MCU, is we do get a short appearance by Arnim Zola, Dr.
Yeah,
Zola.
Zola's in here, still a human. He's not a face on a computer screen and a robot stomach. Still alive. Apparently, they keep up with him, much like his original comic incarnation, much like him in the MCU, that he's still alive from WW2.
He is a very old man in a wheelchair who has to have like oxygen supplements, and he is being hidden and kept going by S.H.I.E.L.D. in S.H.I.E.L.D. safe houses because, kind of that Project Paperclip that we talked about when we talked about Zola in the MCU. It's like they brought him over and they were like, hey, you got a really smart mind there, and we know you did a lot of abhorrent stuff, but if you'll agree to work for the good guys, TM, then we'll let you live.
Before we get going into the movie problem, now that we got the cast out of the way, let's talk about who wrote this movie, because that deserves its own segment.
That deserves its own podcast, but we'll make it relatively short.
The movie, obviously executive producers is Avi Arad, who is one of the bigwigs at Marvel. We've talked about him enough. The person that wrote this movie was David Goyer.
Well, the person who was credited, let's say, for writing this movie. Go ahead.
All right, the person credited to this movie is David Goyer. David Goyer has written a lot of movies. Some of those movies we've talked about. The Blade trilogy, the Dark Knight trilogy, the Snyderverse. And that's just the superhero side. We got movies like Puppet Master, Demonic Toys, The Crow. I could go on and 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 on. Terminator Dark Fate probably be one of his most recent movies. The reboot of Hellraiser. And a bunch of TV stuff. So yeah, he wrote this movie in the 80s for New World Pictures. And like Kiki said, New World Pictures would get absorbed into 20th Century Fox. So they had this script. They owned the script because they bought New World Pictures. So this was already a 10-year-old script, if not more, by the time they got around saying, hey, maybe we can turn this into a TV show. Yeah.
I mean, it makes a little more sense if you picture it taking place in, say, the early 80s, maybe, or the mid 80s, and him saying, like, wait, Baron von Strucker, no, I dispatched him with my own hand, like that. It makes the timeline works out a little bit better. The thing is that people have asked David Goyer since then, like, dude, you were writing some pretty, like, groundbreaking superhero movies at about the same time this movie was released. Those movies, excellent, classics to this day. This movie, hot garbage. What gives? And David Goyer has said more or less that he wrote the script kind of fairly early in his career with, superheroes and Marvel and stuff, from my understanding. And he sold it to New World that had the rights then. And it was supposed to be kind of a mid-budget action feature film. So this was supposed to be something that originally was meant to be for theatrical release, and they told him to write a script that had a budget of more than something like we saw in The Punisher, for instance, which was also done by New World, but it was done by New World when they were in decline. Okay? He was writing for New World when they still had some money to back up their projects. And
timeline-wise, The Punisher would have already been in production when he was hired to write the script.
Well, no, because he wrote this script before that, even, I think.
Oh,
Like, he had
okay.
already sold the script before they ever thought about doing The Punisher. But he threw around some numbers, and I can't remember the exact numbers, but he said that he wrote the script to fit a theatrically released film for that level of budget. And that level of budget, I remember, it's been a little while since I've read those things, so I'm going off memory here, and feel free, dear listener, to fact check me if I get any of this wrong. That's why I'm not giving precise figures, because I don't remember them. But I do remember him saying in the interviews that the figure he was writing for the proposed budget would have been a pretty reasonable action movie budget for something like a Nick Fury Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. They would have been able to afford some special effects, some good explosions, some good, it would have been a good, solid 80s action movie. And then they decided not to make the movie. And he was like, okay. And he moved on to other projects. And eventually New World folded and got subsumed by Fox. And he didn't think any more of it. And he was off doing other projects. He's off, like, working on, early Blade treatments or whatever by this point. I think he was even working on another TV show as this was in production. So he had nothing to do with it, and I'm not even sure he knew they were using his script. But what they ended up doing was taking a script that was meant for fairly mid-budget 80s action theatrical release and tailoring it for a mid-90s TV movie of the week. And it was like a third the budget or something. And then they were like, yeah, and you can't use this element that's in here, and you can't use that element, and they can't use that element. So they ripped all that stuff out, and then they just gave it to some uncredited script doctor. And he said that he saw it once, and that whatever came out the other end was nothing like what he originally sold to New World.
At the time, when he heard that they were making the movie and that they were using his script and they had gotten David Hasselhoff to play Fury, he was like, really? I don't really see Hasselhoff as Fury. But after watching it, he said, all right, he's the only one that understands what I was trying to do in my original script.
Yeah. But as far as, like, why maybe certain things in the script don't make sense, why it's kind of, drags in places and stuff, things that you wouldn't expect from one of his scripts, he said that he doesn't actually know who wrote the script that ended up on the screen. He was like, there were some of my ideas and everything. Okay, yeah. And he's like, I don't know why I was the one credited with the entire thing, but that's how it was. So he's the one credited, but he's not really the one that gets the blame, in my opinion.
We've talked about this with other movies. There are, uncredited script doctors due to unions and contracts that they don't get the credit for it. So I assume it was just, okay, you can do the rewrites, but we're not going to credit you because of union rules or whatever. So Goyer gets the full credit.
Sometimes, like in the case of Carrie Fisher, you don't get the credit. And sometimes, as in the case of this film, you don't get the blame.
Yeah.
It's the trouble and the upside, I guess, of being an uncredited script doctor.
Should have gone the Alan Smithy route.
That's for directors.
So, let's kind of talk about what this whole thing is about. So at this point,
boredom, sleepiness,
yeah,
Xanax.
But let's kind of go through this, because Nick Fury is supposedly retired from S.H.I.E.L.D. after killing Baron Strucker at some point in the past. We're never told. And then S.H.I.E.L.D. wants him back in the action because, hey, Strucker's daughter has stolen his body, and you are the only one that knows why Strucker was on ice to begin with. And we also can see the first image of the S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier in live action. Nice model.
Yeah, it kind of looks like they threw a 3D frame over some kid's like toy helicarrier.
Like a
It's like
G.I.
it's
Joe thing or something, you
yeah,
know?
it's not very good. But, we find our hero retired, apparently not by his desire, and living in the Yukon, and he is Nick Fury and he is digging a hole. Dig diggy hole. Diggy diggy
Digatana,
hole.
digatana, donna digatana. Gonna dig another tana.
No,
Man, I
no,
haven't referenced that movie in a while.
nope, nope, nope. We're going with diggy diggy hole. That is the reference of the day. Anyway, pick your favorite digging song, dear listener, and put it in there, because that's what he's doing.
Maybe he's digging for gold. It is the Yukon. There's gold in them dar hills.
Yeah, he's in an abandoned mine with a pickaxe, just randomly wailing away at walls. We don't know why. We never get context for this scene, why he's there.
Yeah, and they eventually say that the reason he was released from S.H.I.E.L.D. or forced retirement is he's too old school, and that S.H.I.E.L.D. wanted to go in a more 90s direction or whatever.
More rules-based direction.
Yeah, he was too much of a wild card, so they kind of had to force him into retirement. But he's back out of retirement because, yeah, the reason he had to kill Strucker was because Strucker was building a bioweapon called the Death's Head virus. And I love that this is a reference, and you really need to know your references for this to work. Death's Head is a robot that is not only part of the Marvel Universe, but part of the Transformers universe. We got Optimus Primal in here, so there's another reference there. So the Death's Head virus is like this bioweapon. There's no antidote, there's no cure, and Baron Strucker was going to release it onto the world. It was going to kill everybody, and Fury had to take Strucker down, but the virus was released onto his Strucker, so the virus is in his bloodstream, which is why he was on ice to begin with. I assume because S.H.I.E.L.D. wanted to replicate the virus? Maybe weaponize it?
Yeah, I mean, I thought that, like you saw it and you immediately were like, this is a deep cut from the Marvel Universe. I saw it and I was like, this is just a reference to one of the more, well-known branches of the German military.
May column B.
Yeah, little column A, little column B. I mean, it all kind of comes from the same place anyway. But that's the thing is you're more into like, let me look up the giant mech history of the Marvel Universe, and I'm more like, I'm sorry, what are you doing? I was too busy playing Sniper Elite and taking out these naughty German soldiers with a very long boom boom stick. The it all comes back to the same place, which is that when bad guys have to be taken out, we know which ones are the bad guys. The thing is that, yeah, Zola was creating this to be the, doomsday. Hey, it's another Marvel reference. See, it all comes back. Was creating this to be the, doomsday device for, the bad man with the mustache. And Strucker, von Strucker was like, yeah, let's have you do that. And it was, I guess, that they were building it. The movie is a little unclear to me, and I don't know if it was just because the main circulating copy we have is kind of, the audio is kind of fuzzy and the whatever, but something to do with von Strucker's actual body had something to do with the virus. Like, it had a component that the virus was based on, or maybe he had been like infected with the virus or something. I don't know.
According to Fury, that's how he died, is he was exposed to the virus, and then the virus, according to Gabe here, the virus bonded to his DNA. So that's why they kept his body on ice.
Yeah, okay. That was a little unclear to me. So yeah.
Yeah. So the only source of the Death's Head virus is literally in the blood of Baron Strucker because he was infected with it. And that's how he died.
Yeah, so the daughter now needs her daddy's blood and also Zola, who she figures is probably still alive, and finds out during the course of the movie, yeah, still alive, to recreate and mass produce this weapon. And that's the way that she's going to take over Hydra and become the new head of Hydra. And I'm going to give it to Sandra Hess in playing our dear Miss Von Strucker. This is the only person in this movie that seems to be having any fun with it. Not a single bit of scenery or props or costuming was left unchewed after her performance. Thank you, Miss Hess.
This is okay. I know Sandra Hess mostly because she was the other Sonya Blade in the Mortal Kombat movies, Mortal
Same.
Kombat Armageddon. So yeah, so I mean, I didn't mention that earlier. I had to mention it now. But yeah, she understands that she is playing a comic book supervillain, and she is acting like a comic book supervillain.
She is acting like the campiest version of a comic book supervillain too.
Almost like there's the part where she's addressing the other heads of Hydra, you know, cut off one head, another goes its place, blah, 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 blah. You all know the Hydra thing.
Something that they do not bring up in this movie.
Yeah, they don't say that at all. So you have the multiple heads of Hydra, and they're all meeting, and of course it's kind of a joke. Oh yeah, they're all in different time zones. So it's like, hey, I was asleep when you called me for this meeting. Okay, funny joke, sure. And she's like, oh, and there's like one head of the Hydra that's not there, and
yeah, the London branch is like offline.
And they bring in the head of the London branch, and she kills him as a warning. Hey, either you make me the Madam Hydra, or this is going to be you. And it's very, dare I say, orgasmic in how she takes pleasure in killing the head of the London branch.
It's not very efficient. I mean, she has a gun that only has 4 shots. Like, we can see the way the gun is designed. It has 4 bullets, and it takes her until the 4th shot to actually murk the guy. So I'm like, girl, you are standing at like 20 feet away from this man. Like, is your aim really that bad?
She's not aiming at the head, she's aiming at the chest. She is enjoying this kill.
Yeah, makes it even worse. If she was going for a headshot and it took her 4 shots, I'm like, okay, if she's not super accurate, but if she's aiming for center mass and she just happened to hit the head on shot 4, she's like the worst marksman on the planet. Either that or that is the worst gun. One of those two things. But I love her performance in this. The only time I was awake during this movie was when she was on screen doing her thing.
Like I said, she understands that she's playing a comic book villain, and she is playing up the fact that she is playing a comic book villain. When, spoil it, screw it. This movie ain't worth going through the spoiler warning stuff for. Would we find out that she has disguised herself as the Interpol agent who has been watching Zola? And we kind of see something that we do see in the MCU of the face disguise thing. It's not as, it's not the mesh face mask that we see in the MCU, but it's like a spray she puts on her face to make her look like somebody else. As her disguising as this Interpol agent. And so when she sprays the reveal spray on her, and she just flips from one actress to another, and she just goes, "Ha, Fury, I've got you now," and just goes into full, villain mode.
Okay, Guess who didn't realize that was supposed to be two different actresses until the credits?
Miss Face Blindness over here.
Yeah, face blindness strikes again, because it is two very, very similar looking blonde women.
Stellania Rusic plays Inspector Gail Runtire. That is the Interpol agent that Nick Fury meets that has been keeping an eye on Zola. And then they eventually meet the real Inspector, who has been infected with the Death's Head virus and is screaming in pain.
And honestly, once again, face blindness and also latex prosthetics and, plastic shielding and stuff like that. I had to look up in the Wikipedia plot summary before I even realized that's who that person was supposed to be. It was just like, oh, we found someone in a hospital dying of the Death's Head virus. And it was like, oh, they've released it already. I wonder why they're taking so long to release it to other people. And then like, no, it was supposed to be the same. Like, see, this is why comics are all like, interesting costumes and repeated funny names all the time. It's for people like me who can't keep characters and faces and names straight.
And
So,
yeah, and Act 1 of the movie ends with Viper kissing Fury, infecting him with her poison because she's a viper.
yeah, but even though she's a viper, she infects him with the poison of a frog. Because that's what snakes do, infect you with frog poison.
Yeah. And he's got 24 hours to live.
48, I think, but
Yeah,
close.
something like that.
It doesn't matter. He's got until the end of the movie to live if we don't get him the antidote.
What's the antidote? Oh, it's Viper's blood because she's immune to the virus, to this poison. Of course she is. Oh, we skipped over it, but I do want to mention this. This is also the first live action appearance of the LMDs, the life model decoys.
But yeah, that's super important to this movie. Yeah, like they show it in like the first scene when Nick Fury gets to Shield headquarters. There's just like Robo-Hoff. It's like,
and it just, you think it would mean something. We like, oh, he's dying. Okay, we'll send LMD Hoff to the mission, and that's kind of what they do. But he's just there to soak up bullets. So the real Nick Fury can say, aha, I am actually over here and I'm going to stop you.
well, and how did we get LMD Hoff on the mission anyway? Well, there's one like blink and you'll miss it line from Ron Canada that's like, and they shrink down to portable size for easy carry.
But yeah, and by the way, pack up the robot. We're taking it with us.
Yeah. The funny thing is like, okay, there's a couple of things about this scene where she poisons him, but like before she poisons him, she incapacitates him first by like shoving her hand next to his eye patch and like electrocuting him because she's got like a buzzer ring or something like that. And we later see that Nick Fury keeps a fake eye under his eye patch that has enough explosives in it to blow away like a very large like steel door.
And if that's getting electrocuted, wouldn't that just blow his brain out?
Yeah, and what's so funny is when I first saw that, all I could think was like, one, why hasn't that blown before? Two, oh yeah, there's a scene earlier in this movie where that should have gone off, theoretically. And three, it reminded me of a character in the video game Cyberpunk 2077, because there's this like one character you meet in a boxing match that has like for some reason, as part of his cybernetics, put a live grenade in place of his nose. And so he's just walking around with this, and he's like, yeah, I like to go into bare knuckle boxing matches, but no shots to the face. Because of, the thing in the middle of my face. And she's like, you're just as a character, you're like, okay, I guess. And in the fight you have with him, you can choose to, like, punch him in the chest or to, like, go for headshots. And if you go for headshots, all of a sudden you hear this, like, click, and then he goes like, oh no, I told you not to face, no. And then his whole head goes up. And I just kept thinking, like, Nick Fury is that version of that idiot in Cyberpunk that's like, yeah, why don't I put a live grenade inside my and just walk around with it? Because nothing is ever going to conk me in the noggin.
Yeah.
Nick Fury in this movie is so dumb. Can we just get to that? Because he is the dumbest dumb that ever dum-dummed. That's why they can't use dum-dum for dum-dum Dugan. Is because Nick Fury's already the dum-dum in this movie.
And I mean, the entire second act of the movie, and we'll skip over it, is the director saying, Fury, you can't do that. It's too dangerous. And he's saying, I don't care about danger and rules, and I'll have your badge. And, you know how this goes. You've seen enough cop movies. You know what I'm talking about, people. That's literally it.
Stand here and chomp on my cigar and be gruff and
grow a pair, Pierce.
Yeah, it's that kind of thing. I hate the way Nick Fury is portrayed in this movie. And I get that he was portrayed more this way in the comics at the time. I get it. I do. But I hate that too. Like, I like the version of Nick Fury that ended up informing the Samuel L. Jackson performance a little bit more, where he's still a curmudgeon and he's still not gonna follow the rules by the book all the time, but he's a little more, you can understand why he does it. He's a little more intelligent. He's a little more thoughtful. And his jokes are better because that's the worst. It's like the most misogynistic and horrible jokes.
At the same time, yeah, horrible misogynistic jokes, but at the same time, you're still in love with Val. Oh, Val is still in love with you. You two should give it another chance.
But apparently they're not together because Val cheated on him with Clay Quartermain, which is another kind of like, if you popped out for a sandwich to the kitchen during this movie, you're not getting that at all. Because it's like 0.3 of a second in the middle of some dialogue where he's just like, well, you shouldn't have hopped into Clay's bed. So there. I won the argument because I am big strong man. Man, trying to find anything to talk about in this movie as far as like of substance. There's a lot I can joke about in this movie, but trying to like be like, and so the substance of this movie is because there is nothing of substance in this movie. I have seen 20-minute G.I. Joe cartoons that have more dramatic depth than this entire movie.
And yeah, we're doing this because it fits the theme of the month, because we wanted to do a Marvel before Marvel Studios month. Let's take a look at the old Marvel movies before they knew what they were doing. And God, man, they did not know what they were doing.
Both of us had forgotten how bad this movie was, I think, because it's been so long since I've seen this movie. And I'm not even sure I had ever seen this movie to the end. I think what had happened was the few times it came on Sci-Fi Channel, I fell asleep in the middle of this movie and never saw the ending.
So yeah, let's kind of go, because yeah, that's the entire second act is what I was saying. So like, now that the team has split up, because hey, Viper is on one end of the world trying to make the virus, and then we have Werner, who is on the other part of the world apparently delivering a version of the virus. So now they split up. Okay, one's going after Viper, one's going after Werner. Who's going to stop who?
So they send Val and Dum Dum to go stop Werner, and they send Fury and Pierce and Kate with the mental powers over to find Andrea and take her down.
So yeah, that's where we are in the final part of the movie. And as unbeknownst to everyone else, Andrea is perfectly ready, willing, and able to sacrifice her brother. Because according to Werner, he's going to deliver this truck with the virus, and then set it off. But yeah, Andrea's going to actually set the virus off early and kill her brother. And you're like, hey, man, are you really going to do this? Are you really going to kill your own brother? Yeah, I'm going to kill my brother. He knew the risks, and he's going to die for the great Hydra cause because she's evil.
Breaking into the Hydra stronghold there where she's holed up is one of the funnier scenes to me. Because this was the point in the movie where I started being like, was this funded by Big Aerosol? Because they come up against, like, the stereotypical, especially at this point in time, it's like, oh, it's the grid of lasers. How are we ever going to get past the laser sensor grid? Now, this has been used to great effect in so many movies and TV shows and all kinds of other stuff. Like, okay, let us spray some sort of aerosol compound in the air. It will make the lasers visible for a minute, and then we have to dodge the lasers in some sort of complex choreography and parkour. That's always a cool scene in a movie, right? Not in this movie.
No.
This movie comes at it in the dumbest way possible because Pierce just goes like, wait, lasers, I have an anti-laser spray or something, and he like pulls it out of his like, bat belt and does the spray, and it literally makes a door-shaped hole in the lasers, and they just walk through. And I was like, are you beep, beep, beep kidding me? What kind of crap movie is this? You couldn't just hire one gymnast for a day to be like, let me do a couple of backflips to the other side of this and shut off the laser emitter. Nope. Door-shaped hole in the lasers, thanks to my hairspray.
That would have been a great moment for Pierce, honestly. He does the spray. He shows that there's a laser grid, and is like, well, how are we going to get past the lasers? And then like, hey, well, I might have a little bit of, and then Pierce said, well, I did gymnast, and I was a gymnast before I joined SEALed, and then
Yeah,
you have him do.
I did gymnastics at Oxford, and then he just like, backflips through it or something. Yeah, like
Yeah, it plays into the foppish British stereotype, but it also has him kind of have a hero moment.
Because they make Pierce look so bad at every point during this movie, to the point that Nick Fury says, if you weren't so stupid, I would think you were a traitor. That's an actual line from this movie at how much Pierce screws up literally everything. To the point that it's unrealistic, it's like this guy actually got like security clearance and is that idiotic.
Yeah.
Then again, the same can be said for Nick Fury, who is also that idiotic. It's like they're trying to explain the virus to him at one point, and he's like, DNA? Dude, you're old, but in the 90s, even my grandparents knew what DNA was, okay? Like
the closest thing to a hero moment Pierce gets is he punches one guy. And he goes, I did it! I threw a punch! I knocked him out! Okay, Pierce, we gotta go. Celebrate later.
that is a moment for like the 14-year-old you accidentally bring with you as like the child sidekick,
Yeah.
Not a fully grown, like 25-year-old man who has been past military training.
Now there's a countdown. We gotta stop the virus from launching, and yeah. So
Another
now
supremely dumb moment that I love is that, well, it's biological material and it has to be distributed by putting it in the air. They're gonna like shoot rockets into the atmosphere and it's going to disperse the virus all across New York. But, of course you've got to keep biological material in like, cold storage. Everybody knows that. So what do? Of course we keep the rockets and the rocket launcher mechanisms and everything else in deep freeze. No, that's not. No, no. Who wrote this? Who put this together? No.
There's no way David Goyer wrote this.
Yeah, you're like, if you know anything about David Goyer's work, you're like, he either wrote this when he was 12 or
Now
written
it's
by
like,
little Davy Goyer, age 10.
so yeah, now they have to figure out the password to shut down the long sequence. And at this point, Werner's dead. Yeah, big, exciting boss battle that really is uneventful.
Werner, who had all of one line, which is "You won't shoot me," and then immediately gets shot.
So now they have to, get the passcode to shut down the rocket, and this is where Kate comes in because she's psychic, and she grabs Andrea and tries to read her mind. But as we've seen, Hydra apparently has anti-psychic training, as we saw earlier with Zola, because as Kate tried to read Zola's mind, and he just thought of the most horrific.
All she got was B-roll footage from the war.
Yeah.
That was also a hilarious scene. It's like, look inside his mind and see what you find. She's like, it's all stock footage, every bit of it, all stock footage.
Can someone think of something so evil?
Well, it's either him or it's Ed Wood, okay? Only two people have that much stock footage in their brain.
And she tries to do the same thing with Andrea, and Andrea apparently also has similar anti-psychic mind training, and she's like giving her a fake passcode. Is it 9 or is it 6? Is it 9 or is it 6?
6 or 9, Fury, it's your call.
69, dudes!
Yeah, they do the 6-7 joke, but 69, but they do them both wrong, and it's also just boring. There's no tension in this scene. It's like,
it's 9! No, it's 6!
What's so funny is he says it's 9, and then like 25 seconds later he says like, no, it's 6.
He says, the final number of the sequence is 9, and then he looks over at Viper and she smiles. No, it's 6! It's 6! It's a trap!
But what's so funny is he takes so long to say the correct number that I'm thinking, like, as fast as I type, you wouldn't have even finished the final N on the 9. Like, I would have been like, I've already typed it in. Wait, was it 6? Okay, well, we're all doomed. You should have made a better choice,
Yeah.
It's a good thing Val is a hunt and peck typer,
Yeah.
That's all I gotta say. Wait, which one is the 6 and which one is the 9? I don't remember. Which one has the big part at the top and the loopy part at the bottom? Can we just say, like, even with the Lisa Rinna of it all, and like I said, she was a serviceable enough actress at this time. Like, I'm not even saying that she would have been a bad choice, but the way Val is written, I'm like, you just wrote random love interest bimbo in the script and then slapped the name Val on it later, didn't you? Like, nothing about this has anything to do with Val.
It's like we want her to be Black Widow, but we can't call her Black Widow. But we also don't want her to upstage Nick Fury.
Like, it's like we want her to be sexy, but we also want her to be really, really stupid. And we want her to be just competent enough that she's not a complete damsel in distress, but also she can't be too competent because that'll make David Hasselhoff look bad. Because I don't know what came over us in the 80s, but David Hasselhoff was never an action star, and I don't know what ever made us...
The car was doing the stunts, not David Hasselhoff.
Yes, the car was doing the stunts. The ocean was doing a lot of the heavy lifting. It was not... There was, well, let's be honest. It wasn't the ocean. It was Pamela Anderson's chesticles that were doing all the heavy lifting in that one.
Literally.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like David Hasselhoff had a career because cars and boobs. That's why he had a career. People like cars and boobs, okay? What are you gonna do? But yeah, it's never more apparent, I don't think, than in this movie that David Hasselhoff is not an action star.
The fact that, like I said, the fact that Goyer would later say that Hasselhoff seems to be the only one in this movie who understood what Goyer was trying to do with the original script, whatever that original script was. Your guess is as good as mine.
Maybe he was trying to get like a autograph for his kid or something. I don't know.
I mean, I agree with you. Sandra Hess seems to be the only one who gets that this is a comic book movie.
And also, she actually works as an action star. Like, I know that it wasn't really her background as far as I could tell. Like, she was just a model and an actress and stuff. It wasn't like she was like a big martial artist or anything, but like this, and even as bad as Mortal Kombat Annihilation was, she made a pretty decent Sonya Blade.
Yeah. She's a better Sonya Blade than Ronda Rousey. Fight me. Fight me.
The thing is that there's like the big climactic fight between, Andrea and Nick Fury, and it looks like somebody very kindly sparring with an old man or something. Like, and I know most of the shots aren't probably David Hasselhoff. They really don't look like it. It looks like we've brought the stunt double in. But even with the stunt double, it doesn't make him look good. And it's this really kind of boring, barely choreographed action sequence with, at least when we talked about Punisher, we were like, once they actually let the action sequences go in the act 3 of the movie, where like Frank actually is like, all right, let's go stomp some heads. That's at least the part that he's good at,
Lundgren, being an actual martial artist, works in that movie. Yeah, David Hasselhoff, not martial artist, not a fighter. No offense.
Yeah, and Sandra Hess is able to do the choreography, but I don't think she's a martial artist either. So it's like you've got one person who's just pretty good at learning, fight choreography on a set, and then one person who's just kind of walking around hitting their mark and not really doing the choreography in between that. And then you've got an editor trying to kind of pull it all together and make it look good with a few things that the stunt double did that they caught on the day. It doesn't come out great.
Yeah, Pierce, we'll make an agent out of you yet.
Yeah, if you're still awake by this point in the movie, I give you credit, because goodness knows I kept having to like punch myself in the leg to wake myself up for this.
And the movie, so now that you think, oh yeah, they defeated the bad guy,
Well, no, we have the fake out first. We got to remember the fake out, because in that fight scene, she ends up getting the better of Nick Fury and ends up killing him. And you're like, oh no, Nick Fury is dead. And then he immediately like walks out from behind a door and is like, ha ha, I have you now. And she's like, but I just killed you.
You didn't kill me. You've killed my stunt double.
Yeah, except it's actually like an even funnier line, because Hasselhoff delivers it. You didn't kill me. You killed my life model decoy. And I'm like, that does not roll off the tongue at all. Like, and it really doesn't. Like, bless Clark Gregg for being able to do that in the actual series. Because they just finally were like, can we stop saying life model decoy and say LMD instead? Because at least it makes it easier to say the lines. We sound slightly less dorky when we say it.
Yeah. So a Viper's been defeated. They extract the blood from her. They're able to synthesize an antidote. Nick Fury lives. Huzzah. But in the commotion, Viper is able to free herself. She escapes using a escape tunnel made from her father's frozen crypt.
Yeah, he's being kept in this like cryo tube the entire time, and so he's just like, a Nazi sickle the entire time. And then at the end, she just like opens the door to the cryo tube and gets in. And then as everybody watches and goes, no, get her, she like ever so slowly descends into the set.
She's very slowly getting away.
And it's like 15 seconds of her just like being lowered gently in this tube.
love her. Like, she's mugging, like, she's blowing kisses. She's mugging, ha, I got you.
Yeah, again, Sandra Hess saves every moment that she's on screen. But yeah, and then the final, like, hilarious line kicker for the movie is that the second her head disappears under the platform they've built on the set, Nick Fury finally gets the door open and looks down at what has to be the still slowly descending, like, just reach in and grab her by the hair and yank her back up, dude. But he looks down into the tube and he goes, well, they're halfway to China by now. Like, either you're already in China for that to be possible, or you are the worst student of geography ever.
Well, if this was supposed to be a series, then the bad guy has to live. Yeah. And of
Okay,
course,
with her getting away, I just don't like, at least do it better, At least
yeah.
her have her get away in, like, a K car or something. It would be faster.
Or, a little, like, she rockets up. I mean, it would have been a more James Bond-esque escape. Like, she, the cryo tubes turns into a mini rocket and she blasts through the ceiling or something. But that was probably too much for the budget.
Just have her run out the frickin' door. She could have run faster than that, too.
She didn't want to leave her father, which, I'll come back to it. Cause I want to say it all in one go. So anyway, yeah, she's gone, and then Nick kind of is okay. He punches the director in the face because he has a punchable face. Nick and Val reconcile, and they confess that they still have feelings for each other, and they might want to give it another shot. They might not. But we get, while it's not technically a post-credit scene, it's treated, in a modern sense, it will be treated like one. Because it's like, Viper got away, and if we're going to find her, we're going to catch her. If not her, somebody else, because there's a million Vipers, a million terrorist organizations, and we're sure to have many more encounters with them, and all of them this fall on Fox.
And they were never seen again.
Yeah, and then we get the final scene where at some other Hydra lair where Viper is there, and she goes, yes, we will reorganize. We will have a new plan to take down Nick Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D. And then Structor is now, his condition has been upgraded from dead to alive.
They de-thawed him, and it turns out he's just A-okay. Also, maybe get these two some therapy, because this is not how a father and daughter should be acting towards each other.
Yeah, because I want to get this all done in one, because that's why I haven't mentioned it up to this point. Throughout the entire movie, Viper is like caressing her father's frozen carcass. Throughout the minute she gets there, she's like caressing the tube that he's in and saying, soon, father, we will have our revenge. And when she gets into the elevator, she caresses her father's face. And when it's revealed that he's actually de-thawed and alive, it's very incestuous of how they're talking to each other, how they're close to each other. It's very, yeah.
They're from the Alabama part of Germany.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, is that because she'd been playing such an over-the-top campy supervillain the entire time, you could kind of forgive all that during the bulk of the movie as just like, well, she's caressing everything in the film. She's caressing henchmen, and she's caressing random props, and she's, it's like...
And like I said, she's getting seemingly orgasmic pleasure from killing people.
Yeah, you're just like, okay, she's just Nutter Butters. All right, fine. But then, like, he comes back to life and he's reciprocating, and you're like, okay.
And then they walk off again. We have plenty of plans for S.H.I.E.L.D., and we will have many more evil schemes, and you can see them all this fall on Fox.
Immediately canceled. Boom.
Just, what is this movie? What is this movie? And the thing is, the amazing thing is, I did something I probably should not have done. I looked at the comments for the uploaded version of this movie. What the hell are you on, people? This is one of the best Marvel movies ever. This is better than what they're doing in the MCU. What are you on, and where can I get some?
I don't want any of whatever they're on. Thank you. Please keep it far away from me. No, I'm sure that all those people are just trolling. You know, there's like one person who's legitimately like, this is the super greatest movie I've ever seen ever. Why aren't all movies exactly like this? This is my perfect film. And then everybody else is like, hey, wouldn't it be funny if that guy was like really serious? Yeah, let's pretend that we agree with him, you know.
Yeah. So this was intended to be a pilot. This never became a series. I'm kind of glad we never got this version of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., especially with the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that we did get. I'll gladly take Clark Gregg over David Hasselhoff.
And if you wouldn't, please leave my podcast. Yeah, no, man, this is, okay, here's the thing is, this is not the worst movie we've ever seen, you know, doing this show. This is not even the worst Marvel movie I don't think we've seen doing this show.
This isn't even the worst movie we've seen this month.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. But it's not that it's offensive or that it's entirely incompetent, but what it really is, and we cannot explain it to you enough because we are trying to make an entertaining podcast, is that this movie is so boring. It is so snooze inducing.
This is, you know, we've said this on this podcast many times. The worst thing a movie can be is boring.
Yeah, this is absolutely the greatest crime in cinema. There is no joy in watching this, with the exception of Sandra Hess, who we've said.
Yes.
If you condense her scenes down and just let those scenes play, you get like 20 minutes of really fun, out of context nonsense. But everything else is just, and apparently, like, David Hasselhoff really wanted this character. He really wanted to, like, I don't know how true it is, but I heard rumors that, like, he really wanted to come back and play the character again in the MCU.
Yeah, that was, you know, he tried. I mean, that was one of the things, you know, it's like it was, apparently there was a contract involved because of this movie that they at least had to offer it to him first.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I had heard at the time that there had been, like, it wasn't just like a contract thing of like well, we are contractually obligated to offer it to you, but you know, and we know, and everybody involved knows that nobody wants this to go through. You know, like, I have heard that, like, that maybe in the early outings that he might have really been trying to, and, you know, it might have been a bit of a wrestle to get it away from him. I'm sure with, you know, a different script and a different director and stuff that he could have done a little better. But, you know, Samuel L. Jackson's so iconic now in the part that you're like, I don't want to be in the universe where anybody but him got that part, you know? There's a lot of things that I'll be like, well, I would like to see the universe where that actor got cast instead of this one or whatever. I do not want to go to any universe where David Hasselhoff continues to be Nick Fury in the MCU. Like, no, thank you.
I mean, okay, this is going to be controversial to say this. I would rather watch Secret Invasion than watch this again.
Well, yeah, Secret Invasion was overall pointless, but there were interesting moments in Secret Invasion that weren't just like watching one actor have a, you know, like a monologue while everybody else stood around and watched. You know, it's like there are genuine scenes in there where it's like, oh, this one bit was really good writing, or this one bit was a really good action sequence or whatever. It's just that on the whole, Secret Invasion did not live up to the hype, the amount of talent they threw at it, the amount of money, especially, they threw at it, you know? So it did feel like an overall disappointment. This, it felt like it soaked up everything they threw at it and was less than the sum of its parts. With the exception of Sandra Hess, who absolutely nailed it, absolutely understood the assignment. No notes. Bless you, Sandra Hess, for this movie.
Yeah. I mean, and I can understand someone could watch this and say that, David Hasselhoff wasn't so bad in this one. I can understand if that's, your opinion on it, not mine. But I can see how someone can watch this movie and actually see, oh yeah, he was actually one of the better parts of the movie. But he gets so overshadowed by Sandra Hess.
Honestly, even if you were to take her out of the movie and just be like, okay, let's just examine his scenes with other characters and see how he does as Nick Fury, I found his Nick Fury just absolutely off-putting and unlikable. And this is somebody who it's not the David Hasselhoff of it that is off-putting and unlikable.
It's the writing.
It's the way that it's put together. I don't know if it was the writing. I don't know if it was the way he was directed to, it was like half the time you kind of expected him to like chomp on his cigar and be like, I love it when a plan comes together. It's like, I'm not really sure exactly what he was trying to do. There seemed to be too many influences kind of coming together, but it didn't work.
We don't know how many writers this script went through after Goyer put it in. Again, this is a 10-year-old script at the time of this movie.
I mean, that may be why Goyer gets all of the credit / blame on this, is because they put it through too many writers and eventually were like, well, who do we blame for this thing?
Also, the relationship, the love relationship between Nick and Val just does not work.
I will tell you, Nick and Alexander Pierce have more on-screen chemistry than Nick and Val.
Had this gone to series, I think you can have a nice little Ward and Fitz would probably be the kind of relationship I can see Nick and Pierce having if this had gone to series.
Yeah, probably. It's just, I do not feel, there are some actors that you can just like put them on camera together and they have instant chemistry. And there are some actors that you're like, you put them on camera together and it's like, had these two people ever met before? Had they ever been in the same room until you turn that camera on? And every scene with David Hasselhoff and Lisa Rinna feels like they are two actors that just got shoved together right before somebody yelled action. There is no rapport between them. I do not buy them as ex-lovers, ex-comrades, ex-partners, like nothing. I do not feel like they had ever met. I feel like every scene is their first meeting, honestly. Let's get to the most pointless question.
Yeah, does this movie have the magic?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Except for Sandra Hess. Once again, we have erected a shrine to Sandra Hess in our studio.
Yeah. I mean, she's really the only, and I'll say it again, she's the only one that, quote, understands the assignment. I know some people say it's Hasselhoff, but for me, it's Sandra Hess. She understands that she's playing a comic book character. She understands that she's playing a comic book villain.
Going to give any crap to Run Canada or Atomic Beat or Gary Chalk or anything. They are really just basically cameos in this movie. Like, they got like 5 lines in the background. They come on, they're completely serviceable. They do their jobs. They're pros as always. But like, really, you can put all of their screen time together and you get maybe 5 minutes.
Yeah, and they are nothing like their comic book counterparts.
And that is no fault on them. So no shade to them. But of the like major actors that really have to do the grunt work of like carrying this movie across the finish line, Sandra Hess is the only one that seemed dialed into what they were doing on the day.
Yeah, and I feel like everybody else was kind of and I know that it was the style at the time, but like we got to rein in the comic bookness of the comic book movie, and something that would be, from like maybe the late 80s all the way into like the mid 2000s.
I would actually love to see a quote unquote deleted Deadpool scene where they just insert him into a bit of this movie in the background. Just him running through.
Would you have wanted to see David Hasselhoff as Nick Fury in Deadpool and Wolverine?
I mean, if they could have like thrown some shade at this movie, yeah. I mean, and David Hasselhoff has been in the MCU. He's cameoed here and there, of course,
As himself.
as himself. But this would have been one of those things like when they throw shade at the X-Men Origins Wolverine Deadpool in the Deadpool movies.
Or Chris Evans as Human Torch.
Or Chris Evans as Human Torch, where like those actors are like, I finally get the stink of that off of me a little bit. I kind of would have loved for David Hasselhoff to just come in for just a moment and be like, can I get the stink of that Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. movie off of me?
Yeah.
If he'd have been game for that, I would have been like, okay, yeah, the Hoff is back. But no.
I think it's all we can say about Nick Fury, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. As of next week, Kiki, it is once again time to go to that galaxy far, far away, because it is May the 4th next week. So it is once again time to dive into the Star Wars universe, and it has been a long discussion of what we're going to do, because we have The Mandalorian and Grogu coming out in a few weeks. But we've decided that we are going to take our focus to the current, as of this recording, Darth Maul animated series. And we are going to take a look back at Darth Maul's very first appearance in the Star Wars universe. It's everyone's favorite Star Wars movie, Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace.
You raised my hopes and dashed them quite expertly, sir.
Yeah. Pain leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering.
And suffering is what you get when you watch The Phantom Menace.
So we are celebrating May the 4th next week with Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. So come back next week for that, and we will talk to you all next time. Bye.
Bye.
Don't let the magic stop here.
Keep the conversation going. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Rewatching the Magic.
We are also on Blue Sky, rewatchingthemagic.bsky.social. And new episodes are available at rewatchingthemagic.podbean.com and youtube.com/@rewatchingthemagic. Remember, the magic is for everyone.
It only stops if you let it.
We know that right now, things are tough.
But in the words of Jim Henson, the only way the magic works is by hard work. But hard work can be fun.
Check out our show notes for ways that you can help.